With the release of the Xbox One and the PS4, it really got me thinking about console launches and who had the best games at launch. Well, guess what? They all sucked. Yeah, while you all are debating on what console to get based on who's got the best games right now, I'm going back in time to realize that console launches, yeah, all the titles just suck. There's very little to choose from. But after a lot of research, I put together what I think is the top 5 consoles with the best launch titles. Here we go!
5.
Now, I looked at every single console. I'm talking about all the Ataris, Segas, just all of them. And their lineups were so forgettable that number 5 goes to a console that only had 2 titles. Yep! The N64 released in 1996, and it only had Pilotwings 64 and Mario 64. But Mario 64 was such a great and mind-blowing game, it raises the Nintendo 64 way above all the rest. Well, up to the number 5 spot at least. Now, the N64 had some great titles come just a month after, like Shadows of the Empire and Turok, but they were not actual launch titles. And, hell, we didn't get GoldenEye till an entire year later. Still a great console though. Good launch with 2 titles.
4.
Now, as we move to number 4, let me clarify that I am basing these titles off of the release dates for North America. Fair or not, I'm, well, American, and it's my list. So it's based on my experiences. Yeah, what are you gonna do about it?
Not a damn thing!
Anyways, number 4 is the original Xbox. You see, if you look at its lineup, there were a bunch of games that you could also get on the PlayStation 2. The only game that was worth buying the console for was Halo Combat Evolved. Now, this one game revolutionized how first-person shooters were being developed and single-handedly saved the Xbox. If not for this game, we would have never gotten the Xbox 360 or the Xbox One in line. Now, how different our world would have been.
3.
Now we're going to jump back in time to Nintendo with the release of the NES in 1986, also known as the Famicom in Japan. A time when you couldn't base a console on what franchises were being released with it because, well, every franchise was new. But they did lead strong with titles like Super Mario Bros. Yeah, people kind of liked that game. Oh, and Duck Hunt had a gun that worked on your TV. Back then, that could have been chalked up to, well, just plain old magic. And personally, I loved pinball. Yeah, game titles were a little more generic back then, but seriously, pinball was a really great game. It had like 2 levels, and if you fell down one hole, you'd be in another round. You can hit it back up the sides up to the top level. It was great.
2.
Moving on to number 2 was the GameCube. Now, yes, it was a console that undersold, and honestly, I don't really know why. I liked so many of the titles for it, but in the beginning, there were slim pickings. They did leave the gate, though, with one of their main characters' brother. Yep, Luigi had his own launch title, Luigi's Mansion. But, hey, it had Rogue Squadron 2, and that easily was the best game attached to it. And you had the first game with it as well that you can play co-op. Still one of my favorite games, and a remarkable title. Now, with little to choose from, word spread quickly that Super Monkey Ball was where it was at. So a fun game that actually spawned a handful of sequels on its own. So you go, monkeys stuck in balls. Apparently that's a winning combo for us.
1.
Now for number 1. Easily the most impressive lineup when it comes to launch titles, and surprisingly, not Nintendo, but it's their one-time rival, Sega. The Sega Dreamcast to be exact. Now, it had so much diversity in its titles. Just to name a few, you had Soul Calibur, Crazy Taxi, and House of the Dead 2. Oh, and Sonic Adventures, which was a great Sonic game. No joke. Now, the Dreamcast had strong franchises and other new titles that lived on in sequels that surpassed the life of the Dreamcast itself. And it's almost ironic that their launch was so strong, but the fate of the Dreamcast was so weak. Some ask, why doesn't Sega make another console? And the answer is pretty simple. Because they like making money too much. Oh, burn! Sega games actually do okay. So that's my list. Now here's what justifies such a weak launch titles. You can't spend millions and millions on a game that'll be groundbreaking and mind-blowing, mind-melting, because guess what? People don't have the console yet, and you just won't make the money back. So you have to rely on first-party games, which is why all of the Nintendo consoles have been the best lineups. Even if they are just launching with one of their franchise, it's still something. Just because I left PlayStation off the list doesn't make me an Xbox fanboy. Look at their list. Nothing great to start off with for any of their consoles, but this is just based on my opinion. Who do you think should have taking number 1 on the spot. Hit me up on Twitter at the Jovenshire and let me know what you think. Anyways, guys, till next time, I'll see y'all later. Have fun with your launch title.
At this game store, you can buy games for 500 credits and trade them in for, wait for it, 2 credits. 2! Remind you of something?
Get 2 credits toward a new game.